Horror is a genre that is ripe with tropes, formulas and cliches. The haunted house, the vengeful spirit, a dark family secret, moving furniture, mysterious sounds and worst of all, a convenient lack of phone signal just when the protagonist needs to call for help. Women, and particularly mothers, have also fallen into the trap of horror tropes. For mothers, storylines are limited. They are mad, bad, sad, but never multifaceted. These mothers are inadequate, either damaging their children with their neglectful and inappropriate parenting, or simply failing to protect their family with their weak demeanour. Psycho and Carrie show mothers whose behaviour breeds violence in their children. The mothers of The Omen and Rosemary's Baby are powerless to the demonic child they care for. Then there are the screaming mothers of The Shining and The Exorcist who turn to hysterics when faced with the horrors that threaten them. Even the ghost women of Mama and The Woman in Black present a manic form of motherhood, avenging the death of their children with yet more killing. In each of these caricatures, the mother is dysfunctional, her failings making her either the film's main villain or helpless victim. Mothers may play central roles, but their motherhood consumes their entire character, rendering their personalities paper thin. That is, until recently. Some modern indie horror and thriller films have chosen to centralise maternal plotlines, seeing the daunting potential in the complex relationships between mother and child. 2011's We Need to Talk About Kevin, directed by Lynn Ramsey, questions the notion that maternal instinct is natural, showing a mother in turmoil as she asks herself if her son's crimes are a direct result of her nurturing.
I want you to tell me why.
But we'd like to focus on Jennifer Kent's directorial debut, The Babadook, which dived even deeper into the exploration of motherhood, going as far as personifying the female protagonist's grief, fear and anxiety into a physical monster. Amelia, a single mother left widowed when her husband was killed on the way to the hospital during childbirth, struggles to bond with and care for her troubled son. When a mysterious children's book turns up at their house, featuring a creepy monster called Mr. Babadook, Amelia tries to ignore it, just like all her other problems. She hides the book, tears it up, burns it, but the problem doesn't go away. Her son continues to believe in the Babadook, infuriating Amelia, who struggles to hide her growing resentment for her own child.
Just be normal! There is no Babadook!
Ostracised from the rest of society, who simply view her as an inadequate single mom, Amelia is left to struggle alone. Her family and friends, and those in her local community, are quick to judge her, laying the blame for her son's troubled behaviour solely on her ineffectiveness as a mother. No matter how much Amelia denies the Babadook, it returns to wreak havoc on her life. As the book's eerie story reads, "The more you deny, the stronger I get. The Babadook is growing right under your skin." The Babadook cannot be ignored, just like her trauma. It grows stronger and scarier the more Amelia tries to repress it. As the film reaches its final crescendo, Amelia is forced to battle against the Babadook. The more she tries to resist it, to stay awake and fight, the more it seeps in, possessing her and filling her with murderous intent. Her repressed trauma, guilt, shame and psychosis all merge into a physical demon that she must fight with pure willpower. When considering the monster of the Babadook, it is useful to consider Julia Kristeva's concept of abjection. She claims that the abject is something that blurs the line between self and other. It is part of one's identity that has been rejected as it disturbs identity, system and order. In this way, the ghostly manifestation of the Babadook, a physical being born out of her own transgression as a mother, can be viewed as abject. The fear that viewers feel is a direct result of the breakdown of traditional systems of maternal identity and acceptable forms of motherhood, creating a feeling of abjection and horror. In traditional horror films, the mother as abject is a common concept. As Barbara Creed states, they highlight the ways in which woman is shocking, terrifying, horrific. But in the Babadook, these abject fears are brought into the centre of discussion, and the narrative asks us to question notions of idealised motherhood. At one point, the monster even manifests as her husband, asking her to hand over the boy.
You just need to bring me the boy.
To relinquish the maternal role that she has struggled with in an exchange for a life without the burden of childcare. As the Babadook begins to possess her, we can see this as her slowly accepting that this part of her exists, acknowledging its presence rather than viewing it as other. She must attempt to merge the repressed feelings of hatred and disgust with her maternal instinct. As she says, she is his mother in her rawest form. This part of her is just as relevant and just as real as the loving side. It may be ugly, abject, but it exists, and the Babadook isn't afraid to acknowledge this. It is now Amelia's challenge to accept this other side of her personality without letting it consume her, to accept imperfect motherhood and the challenges that come with it. Strengthened by the unconditional love her son shows her, the hate and guilt she has been storing inside her spill out in a grotesque exorcism, an abject expulsion of the horror within. The Babadook, now expelled from her body, faces her one more time, and after a final confrontation, the husk of his being falls to the floor. Against her son's wishes, Amelia approaches it, a tender hand reaching out. In a glow of enlightenment, the Babadook reveals itself to Amelia, and an agreement seems to be reached. Through a horrific journey of self-discovery, Amelia learns that her depression and past trauma will never truly leave her. In a touching final sequence, we see that she has learnt to safely manage it and incorporate it into her life, accepting her imperfectness.
We needed some time to sort a few things out.
The Babadook is still in the house, but he is kept peacefully in the basement, and with the help of her son, Amelia tends to its needs. She picks worms from her garden to feed him, where a singular black rose rises from the earth, a reminder of his dark presence, but also a symbol of hope and growth for her and her son's future. The Babadook is an unflinching portrayal of trauma and imperfect motherhood. She may be the source of horror, but she's definitely not the villain, not the passive victim either. Instead, her battle against the demons within is multifaceted, honest, and captivating. Unlike the one-dimensional mothers of the past, the Babadook depicts the mother as a fully formed person with a history that precedes her motherhood and her own faults and desires outside of the need to care for her son. Centering the mother's perspective is now becoming a common theme in horror. The 2017 XX anthology of female written and directed stories uses horror to focus on issues of maternal sacrifice and the solitude motherhood can bring. Similarly, 2018's Hereditary focuses on the emotional damage we pass on to our children and the insurmountable pressure mothers can feel trying to hold their families together. Horror has always been at the cutting edge of cinema, constantly pushing against the boundaries of what we can see on the big screen thanks to the lack of pressure that small budgets allow, and its prevalence amongst young indie filmmakers. It is refreshing and exciting to see it pushing towards more complex representations of motherhood, an experience which has long been kept in the dark, both in society at large and in cinemas. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for a new video essay every 2 weeks.